Hey, what's up guys, John here, and welcome to my tiny house. So over the past few years, I've been really thinking about and doing a lot of research on tiny home living. It's become a very popular option, particularly with younger people, for a number of reasons. Whether you're looking to lower your carbon footprint or achieve home ownership in a very expensive housing market, it can also be a very attractive option for those like myself who lead a more nomadic lifestyle. In today's video, I'm going to be staying in a tiny house for the first time, giving you guys a tour and a review of my experience, and since I've been researching this subject for a number of years, I'm going to give you my top 10 tiny home tips. So I just arrived at the tiny home, and first impressions, this place is really cool. I feel like it has everything that you would need, yet it's very simple at the same time. You can tell that everything in here was built very intentionally. Everything's built to both maximize and to save space, which is obviously really important when you're living in a tiny house. So I guess now I should probably give you guys a formal tour. So when you walk in the front door, you're immediately in the living room, and the very first thing you notice is that you're immediately greeted by all this light that's coming in through these windows. Lighting is always really important, but especially when you're working with a small space. Being in here, although it's a small space, it doesn't at all feel cramped. And I think a lot of that is because of all this lighting that's coming in. Here we have the kitchen, and as I said before, you have all the things that you need, but it doesn't feel crowded. Your utensils, glasses, toaster, coffee maker. You're not gonna find every crazy extravagant kitchen gadget in here, but you do have everything that you need and that you can make a meal from. So up here you have the bedroom slash loft area, and I really like it up here. Obviously there's no standing room, but this has very much of a treehouse kind of feel. It reminds me a lot of when I stayed in the treehouse in Costa Rica. There's more windows up here. We've got this amazing skylight right here so I can look up at the stars. The windows really do bring in so much more of the outdoors, and it just helps so much to up the vibe. I don't want to use the word OCD because I feel like that gets thrown around way too much, but I'm slightly bothered by the fact that the bed isn't right in the middle, but I'll survive. The bathroom is here. Once again, not huge, but you have everything that you need. It's all about efficiency. It's all about maximizing the space that you have. One thing I will say though about this bathroom is that there's really no counter space, which for me is fine because I use soap and that's pretty much it. Probably won't work for someone who uses tons and tons of stuff. I kind of like this lighting for filming. Is this why people film in the bathroom? The first tip I'm going to give is something you've heard me say many times on this channel, and pretty much all of the other ones are going to fall under this, and that's to do your research. Tiny home living has become very popular on social media, and what that can lead to is a false perception of what it's really like. We all know things can look perfect on Instagram, but oftentimes that perfect photo doesn't show the full story. Will you be building a tiny home or buying a pre-existing one? Will your home sit on a plot of land or will it sit on a trailer? Are you really prepared for tiny home living, and do you know if it fits your lifestyle? It's vitally important to do your research and to make sure you know what you're getting into. Number 2, try it out first. Any home you move into is usually somewhat of a long-term commitment. For most people, their home is both an investment and a commitment, so you don't want to just jump in without trying it out first. Just like I'm doing here, there are a lot of places where you can find tiny homes to rent. Hop on Google, Airbnb, not sponsored, and you can find a lot of places where you can try this out before you just jump right into it. Number 3. This is another one that falls under doing your research. A very important thing to know is that depending on where you live, not every city is tiny home friendly or legal. Just like some places have made it illegal to live off the grid or to have solar panels, some cities are enforcing strict rules against tiny home living. You need to do your research and find out the local laws. Find out if it's legal in your city or in your state. If it is legal, what are the local zoning laws? Not every place is zoned or set up to be able to run electricity and water. If you're putting your tiny home on a piece of land that you own, are you allowed to build on that land? Are you allowed to run heating, electricity, and utilities on that land? Getting into the logistics of owning a tiny home, it can be more complicated or expensive than you thought. But this will all depend on a million different factors, so check the local laws and make sure you know what you're getting into. Number 4. Remember to consider the weather/climate. When you're building or buying your tiny home, it's important to know about things like insulation. Let's say you own the land, you live in the middle of the woods in a nice shaded area, a place that has relatively mild weather all year round. That sounds ideal. However, if you're going to be building a tiny home in Florida in the middle of the summer or in Michigan in the middle of the winter, heating and cooling are very important. It's important to know about insulation, heating and cooling. These are some things that some people often don't think about, but these are important things to remember. Utilize strategic design. In most tiny homes, everything that you see serves a specific purpose. And not only that, but things serve multiple purposes. Whether you have a fold-out bed that also doubles as a dining room table, a staircase that also doubles as a bookshelf and a storage space, these things are very important. Strategic design can come in many ways, using a lot of windows to let in more light, using mirrors to make the space feel bigger, and using light colors, because when you use darker colors in a smaller space, it's going to make the room feel more cramped. So always be strategic in the way you design your tiny home. Number 6. Budget correctly. As someone who's watched way too many shows on the Home and Garden Network, one thing I know is that when people do renovations, they often go way over the budget of what they imagine. Things can happen and come up that you didn't plan for. One thing that's really common is I'll see tiny home prices online listed very cheap, $10,000, $20,000 for a tiny home. A lot of those tiny home prices that you see are only for the basic structure. They don't include things we talked about before like the insulation. Make sure to budget accordingly and spend your money wisely. Number 7. Consider a deck. Having a deck is a great way to both increase your space and to help you enjoy the outdoors. It can also be a great way to have extra storage space by putting things on or underneath it, and having a deck gives you a natural connection to the outside world. Number 8. Consider a composting toilet. Generally speaking, composting toilets are both less expensive and they're much better for the environment. They can also be a great source of compost for your garden, and if you want to know more about composting toilets, my friends Kristen and Sia did a whole video about this. They explained this in a much better way than I ever could, so if you want more info on that, be sure to go check out their video, link in the description. Number 10. Join a tiny home community. Now this is going to vary greatly depending on how and where you want to live, but joining a tiny home community can be an amazing thing. It can save the trouble of having to go out and find land, then making sure you're following all the right zoning and legal restrictions. There's also the benefit of living with other like-minded individuals. It can be a great way to both socialize and to learn about this new lifestyle. And with the ever-increasing popularity of the tiny home movement, more and more places are starting to pop up. Good morning guys, so it's now the next day, and last night I have to say was a very relaxing and peaceful night. I was a little bit concerned about getting up to pee in the middle of the night and coming down those stairs while I'm half asleep, and I did have to be really careful, but I survived. I actually ended up not even sleeping upstairs last night. I was watching a movie on Netflix, ended up just knocking out right here on the couch at like 8 o'clock. My personal opinion is that I really enjoyed it. I think for someone like me with my lifestyle, because I travel so much, and recently I've been downsizing quite a lot and getting rid of things I don't need, having a tiny home I think would work great with my lifestyle, especially if I have the option of putting it on a trailer and moving it, just being able to be more mobile. While I was there, it did make me think a lot about the things that I'm using, the things that I need versus the things that I don't really need. And every time I thought about bringing in certain things from the car, I always second guessed and thought, do I really need this in here? Because you have to really think about all of the space that you're using and whether or not you truly want or need it there. I'm also someone who's not married and I don't have kids, so I think if I had a bunch of kids, it probably wouldn't work for me. But there are lots of families who make it work in different ways that you can live. I definitely recommend at least trying out staying in a tiny home. The place I stayed at is Tiny Home Siesta. It's right by the beach. Really cool place. The video is not sponsored, by the way. But anyway, there are some great tiny home communities popping up in places where you can stay just for the experience. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like button if you did. And tell me, do you guys like this type of video? Do you want to see me do more tiny house tours or reviews of different places? Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you very soon with another new adventure.